Yes. Today we're going to start on 40B, Mem Amid Beis. There's two dots. It's in the middle of the page. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's supposed to be learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately.
Question on yesterday's Daf.
Yeah.
This moda'ah,
Declaration.
I guess I don't really understand how and when it's used. Is this something you write beforehand? This protest when you feel you're being coerced?
Right. Right. Either you write it or you pronounce it in front of witnesses. So what I'm about to do, I'm not really agreeing to, being pressured into this.
Uh-huh.
Right. It would be like what do the kids do? They like cross their fingers and then they promise you. It's like I don't really mean it. Yeah. So we're learning Lili Nishmas Avigol de Basper Pinyamin and Sanal Sav Ben Ben Sian. And also refers name of Avin David Ben Sarah. Avin David Ben Sarah and Gedali gets a little yes Ben Tegets Pera. Aaron Akayan's yard sites, right? Yeah. Okay, one of my students is trying to go to yeshiva. Went to Teres Chaim, they wants to go to Morristown. So he's asking me to help him with his tuition. They gave him a very small tuition, $2,500. So if anyone wants to contribute, you have to. I don't want to say his name. If you she's telling me that you want to give, I'll give you. You have to put in the link. You have to put his name because it's going to his tuition. So yeah, it's a good bacher.
Will you send out the link on our WhatsApp?
No, because I don't want everyone to give unless they're putting in the person's name. So I want to give straight to Morristown. Yeah, straight to the yeshiva. I don't want to be involved. I'll give also, but okay. But just text me and I'll text you the name to put into the memo. So that way, if you're gonna give, I'll send you the name. I just don't want to announce and be embarrassed. Okay. The Gemara starts like this. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, "Hein matanta timirta le'maginan ba." Matanta. This is first of all. This is Rav Yehuda. This is a student of Rav, a student of Shmuel. He's a second generation Amira. He says that if there's a hidden matana, it's not acceptable. It doesn't work. If someone is not ready to announce that he's giving it to someone, he's not announced publicly that he's giving this gift, and we don't consider it a real gift. Now, there's a whole bunch of possible concerns of why, what the issue is. Concern may be that maybe he's giving it to someone as a gift secretly, then he's going to sell it to someone else. Then the recipient of the gift that no one knows about is going to show up and say, "Oh, he couldn't have sold it; it was really mine," and then they'll split the money together. That would be a classic concern. There's other possibilities also, but for whatever reason, he's not announcing it, and the Gemara says Rav Yehuda holds because he's not announcing it, then it's not valid. What is the case of matanta timirta? What? How does it work? What is this halacha that's not valid? What is the scenario? Well, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef comes along and he explains it. Amalahu Lasadi. He says to the witnesses, when you give a gift, if it's going to be a property, then you have to write a document. So he tells to the witnesses, Zilo atmiru uksuvale. Go and hide in secret and write the document. Okay, so he doesn't want anyone to know about it. He tells them to write it in secret. Ikadamri, Rav Yosef. There are others, a second version of what Rav Yosef said. The layamalu teisvu b'shuk delay Amar lahu teisvu b'shuka ubebraisa b'tichtav alei. He didn't tell them to sit in the marketplace or sit outside and write it. Now, an easier version to this text would have been, which I think it exists. It says, "The Amar lahu delay teisvu b'shuka ubebraisa." Don't sit in the marketplace and write it. He didn't tell them to hide. He just said, "Don't sit in the marketplace." Or the way our text says is he didn't say to write it in public. What's the difference between the two? One of them he told them to hide. The other one he told them not to do. He didn't tell them to do it in public. No, he didn't say. He didn't tell them to do it in public. The other version would be he told them not to do it in public, but he didn't tell them to hide. Whatever the case is, my binaya, what's the difference between them? It can be stama. If he didn't say anything, he just said write a document. If he needs to tell them to hide to make it invalid, so he didn't tell them to hide. But if he needs to tell them to do it in public to make it valid, he didn't tell them to do it in public. He just said write the document. Yeah. So this is a question in two versions of Rabbi Yosef of how the Matanta Tamira that Rabbi Yehuda told us doesn't work. Amar Rava, yeah. What's the problem? Just trying to figure this out. It's a bracha, right?
This goes many documents. It's the first time. It has to be written publicly because of what it did. I don't think it mentioned whether it had to be written public or not.
Yeah, it's only by a gift that we have this concern. Maybe there's some fraud that's going on. And the Rashbam actually doesn't even mention that fraud. The Rashbam, you'll see in a minute, but the Rashbam has another concern. It says that maybe not the fraud. The Rashbam's concern over here with the Matanta Tmirta is that maybe you already gave it to someone else, and that's why you're embarrassed to announce it. Maybe you gave it to someone, and there's someone else that has a claim on it. That claim, like, how come you're giving it to him, not to me? Said, okay, I'm going to give it to you, and really you had already given it, so you don't want anyone to know about that. So you tell the witnesses to write it privately. And really, it's already been given to someone else. That's one issue. The other issue the Rashbam says is that maybe what you're doing is you're about to be coerced into selling this property. So in order to avoid that coercion, you're giving it as a gift to someone else. Now, you don't really mean to give it as a gift. You just want to get out of that coercion. And so what you're doing, this is just the loophole to get out of that, but you're just going to use this when the guy's going to say, okay, you sold it to me. You say, no, I didn't. I looked like I sold it to you, but I already given it to someone else. So therefore, the Rashbam says it's not really valid because you're using it just, why would you be hiding? It must be you're using it for something else. Collateral. So, but it would still be a valid until they come. It would still be valid in those cases, right? Until they come to collect. Yeah, when they come to collect, then they would take it away, and then he would have to either pay or whatever. You're not saying that would invalidate it. The reason why it's invalid is either that other reason that there may be fraud. That's the other Rishonim say. Maybe the Ramah, I think the Yad Ramah. Then the two reasons of the Rashbam is that maybe he's not really doing this. He's not really giving it as a gift. He's just doing it to avoid a coerced sale that's about to happen, or maybe he had actually already given it to someone else, and now he's giving it to this person. Okay.
So if you accept this document, you never know if someone's gonna a year later whip out another document and said, "Oh, I really didn't mean to do it."
Yeah. So what we're saying is that whenever there was a matanta tamir, whenever there was a document that was written It wasn't done in public. So it's going to be invalid. Now, what's going to happen is, how do you know if the document was written in public? What they're going to say is, in the Rashbam on the next page says, that the witnesses that are writing the document have to say that he told us to write the document Beshuka, in the marketplace. It has to say that when it says that we were sitting together in this, you know, and when you the way you write a document, it's over there. It has to say that if he told us to write the document in the marketplace. Yeah. Okay. Rava. Rava says, although the Matanta Tmirta is invalid, although this is not a gift, Reuven gives a secret gift to secret gift, sounds like the name of a book. Gives a secret gift to Shimon. Shimon does not get the gift. However, it's still considered a Maidah, this declaration of Nasali that we're talking about. This is considered a declaration of coercion for the sale of the property that took place between Reuven and Levi. That was exactly the Rashbam's concern about this. What is the purpose of this hidden gift? Was to avoid the sale that's about to take place that Reuven's being coerced into doing. So he says, although this is not a valid gift to Shimon, but it does work as if it's a declaration of coercion that he did not want to sell it to Levi. Okay. Omar Rav Papa says, Rav Papa is a student of Rava. He says, Rav is a student of Rav Yosef, Rav and Abaya. Well, Rav Papa says that what Rava had just said, he didn't actually say it. It was implied from a story that happened, but it's implied incorrectly. It's not really the halacha. But the halacha that you're taking out of this is not going to be relevant in most cases, because there was a certain story that had this halacha, but that was for a different reason. So you can't take this halacha from that story. What was the story? It says, Hu Gavra was a person, the Azal Kedusha Yitza. He went to marry a woman. Amrlei, so she said to him, Ikasatli Kula Nichsa Chavinalach. What's the word? Chavinalach Litza. V'ilai Le'avinalach. This is classic. She says, if you're gonna give me all of your money, then I'll marry you. And if you don't give me all your money, I won't marry you. Yeah. Okay. Give me the credit card before we even start. So Azal Kasvala Lakulinafsi. So he goes and he writes all his possessions over to her. So Asa break Shisha. Yeah, he's crossing his fingers, you think. Asa break Shisha. He has an older son. He has a son that says, you're giving all of this to your new wife. But what about us? What about my inheritance? This is not right? This is a classic story. Amalei, but who what about that person? Shrink himself. What's going to be with us? Yeah. We've been waiting for this inheritance, and now you're just giving it to the new wife. Amalu Lasadi, so he says to witnesses, Zilu atmuru ba'avar yamina suvale. This is go and hide in Avar Yamina. Avar Yamina is the name of the place, and I don't know anything about it. What's specifically going on with that? I don't know. I have no clue. It says go and hide in that place and write the document. Okay, what's the document? That he's giving the gift. He's giving all his possessions, not to his wife. He's giving it to his son. Then he's going to marry his wife, and who's going to end up with the money? Well, not the son, because it's a matanta temirta, right? It's a matanta temirta. It's not a good gift. What about the wife? Maybe the wife should. So Rava said, Asal Kami the Rava, they came to Rava, Amalahu, Lay Markana, Lay Markana. No one acquires it. First, the son doesn't acquire it because it was a secret gift. That doesn't work. the wife doesn't acquire it because that was considered a maidah, considered a declaration of coercion. The fact that he gave it to someone else before he did this transaction means that what he was getting in that transaction was coerced. That's what he was trying to avoid it. Man the Chaza Savar, the one that was watching this, understood that the reason why it's not a good gift to the it's not a good transaction that the wife doesn't acquire all this property. That's because there was a maidah, there was a declaration of coercion. But that's not actually what happened. You see, we know that there was coercion anyway. So if we know that there was coercion, that she was saying that I'll only marry you if you give me all your money, we know that he was coerced into that. Yeah. So we know that he was coerced into that. So then when he writes a document that tells us that, yes, there was coercion, but the combination of the document and us knowing that there was coercion, that combination is valid, and it makes it that it's not a good he's not really obligated to give all the money. So what happened to the marriage? I don't know. What happens to the marriage? Whatever the case is, but over here, in a regular case, when he's giving a secret gift, come sit over here. What's wrong?
I just want to be able to hear him.
Oh, he's giving a secret gift, and then he's doing a sale. So what's happening there is we won't say that it invalidates the sale because he actually wants the other person to acquire. No, the second person. The matanta tamirta that he did first doesn't work, but the second person that he did in public that he does want to work. And no one told us that there was a maidah, that there was a declaration. If we know that it's not good because we know that there's coercion, so then the matanta tamirta will act as a declaration for the coercion. But when we don't know that there's coercion, and we're just going to say the matanta tamirta would be the coercion, that we don't say. So, yeah, turns out that Rava's statement that a matanta tamirta, the secret gift, works as a declaration of coercion for what happens afterwards, that is not, it's not accepted. Rav Papa said that was only in one specific case. Yeah. In the comments, does it say what happened with the marriage? In Rava's case, the woman apparently never stipulated that the validity of her marriage be contingent upon her receiving the man's property. Had she done so, the marriage would obviously be invalid if the gift were voided. Rather, the woman refused to consider marriage until the man deeded all his property to her. Once he did so, however, she agreed to marry him unconditionally. Okay. Yeah, Naftali doesn't believe that.
Well, there must be some historical story here because this is such an illogical situation that the Rabbanim are promoting, because in any complicated transaction, there are lots of discussions before the end, and there are lots of documents going back and forth beyond. But when you finally come down to the sale, that last document is always considered the final embodiment of all of their thoughts and ideas and intentions. And if you can say, oops, but really there was this other document I never told you about that nullifies this, it's not a logical way to conduct life.
Right. So in this case, I there's really no problem with saying that the marriage was invalid. There's no problem with saying that. The Gemara doesn't say that the marriage was valid. It's fine. Marriage was invalid. You want to say the marriage was valid? Then we can come up with this possibility that maybe she would only go out with him until gave all the money. Once they went out, then she agreed to marry him unconditionally.
So it was
You know.
discrimination.
To go out, and he faked it, and then they went down. Then she agreed to.
And then she agreed.
But it's no longer his money.
Well,
Right.
we're saying that that because he was coerced, he didn't really give it to her.
And he was coerced by her?
By her. In order for him to go out, for them to discuss marriage, he had to give all his money over to her.
I give up.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Right.
One thing I can think of is like sometimes today they get the whole agreement set, and then when they get ready for closing, they do title search, and all these things could come up against the title, and then the person might be like, "Oh, it's better for me not to sell. I don't have to pay all this debt, so I'll lose the property and not get any money in return."
Uh-huh.
But both buyer and seller agree, and they went through all the details and everything. It's like ready to close, and then.
So the only thing that I've heard similar to this is I've heard a story with the shidduch where the chassan's family claimed that they were very close to the Prime Minister of Canada, and I forgot the guy's name, something. Trudeau, and they're like very up in the Parliament and all of this. And he drove around in his, limousine and his private, jet and whatever, all this stuff. They made the guy, and turns out none of that was true. The whole thing was a fake. It was all. But meanwhile, that's how they got the shidduch started. They never would have looked into who's this guy. What is he? They say, oh, he's an important person. He's like the right-hand man of this guy. And turns out later, the whole story was nothing. No one knew. It was an American girl, so she didn't know anything about. But it sounded like so. Anyway, so the shidduch went through. They got married. They got divorced afterwards. They got divorced, but the marriage was a valid marriage. They just like fake information,
But we discussed that in Gibson. Like if she said that he said that he was a corn, like all those things were like marriage.
Yeah, if it was done on condition. This wasn't done on condition that everything that you told me is true. This was just
on condition.
This is the shadchan was a liar.
Knew that the lie.
Yeah, I don't think it was a real shadchan, but I'm saying like in the case that would be the shadchan made up the story.
By the way, the word on the street is that cash roads.
Oh.
So you see the pictures there.
There's a story with some shadchan said, I bet I can get the tailor's daughter to marry Rothschild's son. You remember that joke? They said, how are you going to do that? It's impossible. He said, no, it's not a problem. He calls up, how did this work? He said, he calls up Rothschild. He says, I have a shidduch for your son. He said, who? He says, it's a relative of the World Bank or something. So then he calls up the Rothschild. He says, it's the opposite. Rothschild's daughter with this guy. It's Rothschild's daughter with this guy. So he calls up the World Bank. He says, I have someone to work for you. It's the son-in-law of Rothschild. So they said, oh, okay, sure, we'll take him as president. So then he calls up Rothschild. He says, I have a shidduch for you. It's the president of the World Bank. So then they made the match.
Nice.
Okay. So Iboilahu. Now the Gemara has a question. Stamamai. What's the we had a discussion before, two statements from Rabbi Yosef. This is one way of learning the Gemara, the way the Rashbam learns it. We had two statements of Rabbi Yosef that how does the document have to be written? Does he have to tell the witnesses? If he tells the witnesses hide and write the document, it's invalid. The other possibility was if he doesn't tell them to write it in public, it's invalid. So what's the difference between them? Stama, if he doesn't say anything. Now the Gemara says, what's the halacha when that case? Ravina Amar Lei Cheshinan. Ravina says, we're not concerned now. We're not concerned that it's a valid gift. I'm sorry. We're not concerned that it's invalid. That's the way the Rashbam learns this. We're not concerned that it's invalid. Now, the reason why he uses the term Cheshinan is that we're going to consider it a valid, according to Ravina, consider it a valid gift. Rav Ashi Amar Cheshinan. Rav Ashi says, no, we are concerned that it's invalid. And therefore, the gift doesn't transfer over from Reuben to Shimon. But if Shimon had grabbed it, then we would say that it still is Shimon's. And the Hilchasa, Cheshinan, the halacha is that we are concerned about it if it's considered valid, if it's not valid. And so therefore, whoever's hands it in, that's how it's going to work. However, Rashbam points out that when you write a document, you have to write in the document that he told us to write in the document. He told us to write the document in the marketplace and to sign it outside, even though he didn't actually say that. But a stam, if it doesn't give any instructions, probably he wants it to be done according to the way the sages want it. The default. Yeah. Okay. The new Mishnah. Kol chazaka sheini matayne chazaka. Anytime that someone makes a chazaka, let's talk about the 3-year chazaka. There are other chazakas, but the 3-year chazaka, he's in the property for 3 years. What are you doing in my property? He says, I don't know. No one said anything, right? So that's not considered a chazaka. Ketzad, give me an example. What's the case? Amar Lai matais. Potentially, what are you doing in my house? What are you doing in my property? And he says, no one said anything. No one ever told me anything. So in a chazaka, that's not considered a good chazaka, right? The whole point of the chazaka was that you had a document that said that you bought it, but you don't have to keep it in because it's more than 3 years and no one said anything. But if you don't have any claim, then what does the chazaka do? So let's say he says, you sold it to me. What are you doing in the property? He says, you sold it to me. You gave it to me as a gift. Your father sold it to me. Your father gave it to me as a gift. So then, hareza chazaka. If you're there for 3 years, you can't say, where's your document? Because no one told you anything for 3 years, and you have a claim behind it. So that's going to be accepted. If someone just says, what are you doing in the property? He says, well, I inherited it from my father. He doesn't need anything more than that. He doesn't have to go back and say, well, how did your father get it? He doesn't have to. That's not just. I don't know. He doesn't need to know anything more than that. He just knows that it was my father's, and I got it from my father.
So even if he was living in the property for 3 years, he wouldn't. Not as if he wouldn't have a chazaka.
Wouldn't have a chazaka if he has no claim. If they tell him, what are you doing here? He says, I'm a squatter. No one said anything, so now it's mine. They said, no, it's not yours. Yeah. The Gemara says, Pshita. The Gemara finds that it's very obvious that if he doesn't have a claim, it's not going to be his. Obviously, you can't just take people's things and then just say that it's mine because no one said anything. Yeah. Now the time you're getting complicated. By the son was here for 3 years. Now the time how do we answer this pshita? It's obvious if there's no claim. It says, I could have thought, hi Gavra Mizban Zavnalei. The truth is that this person, he doesn't know the halachas, he doesn't learn Gemara. He actually bought the property. Zavnalei Hayar. He bought it. He just lost the document. By the Kamar Hachi, this that he's saying no one said anything. If I say that I bought it, Hayara, if I bought this, that he sold me this property, they're going to tell me to show the document. So Hilkach Leimale Anan, I could have thought that we should say, Dilmashtara Havalach Birkas. We should like assist him in his claim. We should ask the question. Well, maybe you had a document, but you lost it. We have a rule that we try to help people out. You open the mouth of the mute. Help him make a claim. Mashmalan comes to teach us that the judge is not allowed to act as a lawyer. If the guy doesn't say the claim, you can't help him. You can't say, well, maybe you wanted to claim this. You come to court, you say, well, what are you claiming? And you can't say anything more than that. Now, we would, when it's different, when it comes to different scenarios where we do give a claim. But here, person's not, he didn't give us a claim. He didn't say that he inherited, he didn't say that he bought, he didn't tell us anything. We can't assist him until he makes those statements. Yeah. Anav Simon, the following rabbis. That's what it looks like. Rav Anan, Shakal Bidka Ba'ara. Rav Anan, unfortunately, a flooded, it came through his field in the marker that says where the end of his property is, got washed away. So he comes to put up a fence. Azal Hadar Guda Ba'ara de Chavre. He went and it's not Hadar, Hadar Guda. He set up a fence, but he ended up setting it up not in his not at the border of his property, but into his friend's property. Yeah. So also the comedy of Nachman, they come to Rav Nachman, Zil Hadar, that you got to go move the fence and give the guy back his property because you ended up 2 feet in or whatever, and that's really his land. He says, V'achzikuli, why do I have to do that? I have a chazaka, I've been using this property. By the way, I have this story actually. A guy looked over, they were doing some work behind the property, and his neighbor looked over the property, and he notices that all the walls from his side of the street, the back-to-back property, are further in. His wall are further out. His wall is in. And the guy right behind him, the back-to-back, had already built a pool and everything in the thing. Somehow his fence ended up moving over there. They checked up the document. Turned out that he had some reason. There was he ended up with a larger area. He had to move the fence back and up through the pool, and it was like a whole thing. Yeah, I think what happened was originally they were using that area for wires, where you weren't supposed to build there, and then something changed, and then or something, and it ended up with that mistake. But it's exactly this story. He had his fence too far over. He says, "Vachzikuli." That's what the guy's claim. I says, "What do you mean?" It's like what's it called in America? The guy was a lawyer actually. When if you have the property for a while, no one can say anything.
The legal term is the law of adverse possession.
Adverse possession. He said adverse possession. He should keep it. He was asking, what's the halacha? What's according to the Bezdin? So Amalei, they told him, come on, who you want to follow? You're just going to say that you have a chazaka like this, and you have it. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yishmael, Damar Kol B'fan of Lalta the chazaka. You want to say he wasn't there 3 years with this, by the way, and even if he was, there's no backing to it. He says you want to just say that you're following Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yehuda we had already. Rabbi Yehuda says that the reason why a chazaka is 3 years because the guy has to go and then come back. But if the guy would be here, it would be a chazaka immediately. Rabbi Yishmael is coming up later. But they hold that l'altar v'chazak immediately. There's a chazak if the person's in front of you. Well, guess what? Let's helchas kavasaya. We don't paskin like them. Now, why does he have to even say that? One second. You'll see. He said, but the guy, he gave me this property. He gave me this extra property. How do we know? Because the asav is good about that. Because when I was building the fence, he actually helped me build it. So he admitted that this property he's like giving me, it was a gift. So Amalei, Mechila B'Tarasi, that was a forgiving, he forgave that property, he forgave it by mistake. He says, At gufach yaviyadis layavdis. You yourself never would have taken this property if you would have known. So the fact that you wouldn't have taken it, he also wouldn't, the whole reason why you got it was because of a mistake. He also didn't know, and it was a mistake. And so therefore you have to move the fence back and up to all the, what's it called when they do the flowers and everything, the landscape. Yeah, you have to mess up the whole landscape and move the fence. Okay. Rav Kana, Shakal Bidkabar, Rav Kana had the same story. What is the Anav Simon? When it said before the mnemonic, what was that? What was that going? I thought it was the rabbis that were coming up. This was the ayin. I thought would be Rav Anan. Oh, so Kahana, the nun of the Anav is Kahana. Why are they using the nun from his name? And then what's the Bays? Anan, Kana, and Bidka. All right. Strange. Anyway, Rav Kana had the same story. He had a flood went through his field, and then he lost the marker. Also had the good about it the lady day. He ended up putting up the fence in the land that wasn't his. We're on top of 41b. Also, the Rav Yehuda comes to Rav Yehuda. Yeah, Rav Yehuda is probably his friend. They were both students of Rav. He says, Azal I see Trey Sadi. He says, go and bring 2 witnesses. How deep into the friend's property the wall is? Chadam, or one of the witnesses, one of them said he moved it two rows in. You know, there's rows in the field. He put the fence 2 rows past to his border. Chadam, or the other witness said, put it in 3 rows in. Witnesses can't make up they're not saying the same thing. That's going to be an issue. He says, okay, so you have to pay for 2 out of the 3. Because Amalei, come on. He says, who are you following? Who says that? The 2 witnesses are making up their mind. And now I have to do 2 out of the 3. He says, well, he responds, I'm adding in the words over here the way the Rashbam does. He says, Amalei, it doesn't say Amalei, but the Rashbam has on Amalei. Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Reb Yehuda tells him back, I'm following the opinion of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The Tanya was started in a Bryce from Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, there's different versions who Reb Shimon ben Elazar is. We've always said that Reb Shimon ben Elazar is a student of Rabbi Meir, but the Rambam has a different version to that. Anyway, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, if 2 groups of witnesses, 2 pairs of witnesses show up, they say so-and-so borrowed money. Reuven borrowed money from Shimon. How much was it? So 1 pair of witnesses says it was 100. 1 pair of witnesses says that it was 200. So that everyone agrees, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel will agree that Sheish B'chal Masayim Mana, that he definitely owes 100. We don't know if there's another 100, but he definitely owes 100 because included in the 200 is a 100, 2 of them. But but they agreed to the 100, so there's 2 pairs of witnesses. What do they argue about? When there's 1 pair of witness. That one says 100, one says 200. We don't have a single pair. A single pair that's agreeing. So then Beis Shammai says that we can't trust them. And Beis Hillel says no. Beis Hillel says that they agreed to the 100. Question is about the 200, about the second 100. So Rav Yehuda is telling Rav Kana, he says that I have 2 witnesses. One said that it was 2 rows. One said that it was 3 rows. They both agree that it's 2 rows, so you have to pay the 2 rows. I have 2 witnesses on the 2. 1 witness is on the 3rd, so we're going to just say that it's 2. So Rav Kana says, but I could bring you a letter from the west, from Israel, that says that the halach is not like Rav Shimon ben Elazar, and you're passing like Rav Shimon ben Elazar, like according to Beis Hillel, right? That's how you would do it. Beis Hillel, Rav Shimon ben Elazar says, I could bring you a letter that even Beis Hillel doesn't argue about this, and Beis Hillel would say that it's not acceptable. He says, go ahead and bring it. When you bring it, we'll discuss it. When you bring it, you can call me collect. That doesn't exist anymore, right? Okay. Hu Gavra was a person, the Darba Kashta be Lisa Arbashani. He lived in an attic. This could be like one of those Mother Goose rhymes or something. Was a guy that lived in an attic for 4 years. Asamari the Beis Ashkeche. Turns out the owner of the house comes and he finds him there. He says, what are you doing? What's going on? I'm laying my base by base. What are you doing in my house? Amalemi planya does zavinta does minach. I bought it from so and so that bought it from you. Asla come to Reb Chia. He has a claim. He has a chazaka also. He was there 4 years, not just 3 years. Amalei yeslach sadi de darbe ihu de zavnas mini afilu chadyema ukimna la biyadach. If you can prove that the guy that you bought it from lived there even for 1 day, then it's going to be yours. That would be a claim. How do you know that it's his? Well, he was living there. How long was he living? I don't know, 1 day. I saw him there 1 day. I saw it looked like it was his, so I bought it from him. That would be valid. Be lie, but if you can't bring even that proof, then lie. Then you don't have a claim. Just saying I bought it from so-and-so, maybe the guy who never owned it. Right?
Someone just broke in and then just sold them.
Well, you'll see that in a second. Amar Rav says, I was sitting in front of my uncle. You see, who did this case come in front of? Reb Chia. Reb Chia is the uncle of Rav. He's the uncle of Rav on both sides. Rav's mother was Rav Chia's sister, and Rav's father was Rav Chia's brother. Now, how could a brother and a sister get married? That the Gemara explains that they were his father and mother were not related. They were stepsisters, and they didn't have any sibling. They didn't have any blood relation. Well, so Rav says, I was sitting in front of my uncle, Habibi, and I said to him, sometimes you have these guys, these brokers, these real estate guys, they buy and sell so fast that in one night they've already sold it before they even lived in it. So they flip it. There's no such thing as people flipping a property.
They didn't flip that pen, huh?
Yeah. So he said, why does he have to live there? So the Chazisha Ladaita says, I could tell that what his opinion was that if he would have said that I was there when he bought it from you. Yeah, we're talking about, let's say, Levi's in the property. Reuven comes to Levi, so what are you doing in the property? He says, I bought it from Shimon that bought it from you. So Reb Chia said, if you can prove that Shimon lived there for a day, then that would be acceptable. Rav introduces, but maybe Shimon flipped it. So he understood that Reb Chia would have agreed that if Levi would have said that I watched the purchase of Shimon buying it from you, I was there, then Mehaman, he would be believed. He could have said, I bought it off you. He could have had a perfect claim. Levi could have said, I bought it from Reuven. That's right. Right. He could have said, I bought it from you. So, right. So Rava says, it makes sense to follow the ruling of Reb Chia, the Kani. Say that if someone says that I got it from my father, so he doesn't need a claim. Where did your father get it from? He doesn't even need to say that my father, does he have to say my father lived there for a day? He doesn't need to, the father could have, he doesn't know. He doesn't know if his father lived there at all. And that would be acceptable. Now, what we're saying now is that the same thing would apply to a purchaser. Right? And we would put the claim in. Now, he doesn't need the claim. He doesn't need to have the claim of where the father got it from. However, haraya boy, but he still needs to have a proof. He still needs to have a proof. Yeah, he doesn't need to say where his father got it from, but he would have to have a proof that his father owned it. So he would have to bring a proof that his father owned it for a day. Yeah.
This assuming that he was there for 3 years.
Yeah, of course, he was there for 3 years. The father, he would have to have a witnesses that the father lived there. Right? The Gemara says, maybe not. Maybe you don't need any proof. How do you know that that's what it means? We're looking at the wording here, and then we're coming out where getting the mashmas, the implication, getting what's implied from this is that he doesn't need to have a claim, but he does need to have proof. And even if you want to say differently, here is a continuing question. It's not an answer. Maybe even if the he doesn't need even if the inheritor needs a proof, but maybe a lekech doesn't need a proof because no one would ever give money if he doesn't know for sure that it belonged to the person that he's. When it comes to a sale, for sure he checked it out, and so he wouldn't even need to bring proof for that. Let's say we saw the seller in the property. Is that considered a proof? Amar Abaya, that's exactly the proof that we're talking about. Rav Amar, Rav says no. It's possible that the person is walking around the property, but it doesn't mean that he owns it. He's just doing an inspection. Imagine a guy does an inspection on a property. He walks out. He says, "What are you doing in the property?" He says, "Oh, it's mine. I'm here. I'll sell it to you." He never owned it. He was just inspecting it. Huh? Brooklyn Bridge. Okay. Let's leave the Gemara here. Have a good day, everyone.
So if you went over to Israel and you walked into somebody's house, they weren't there for a couple of days or a week or whatever.